So in today's video, I'm going to be rating and giving price predictions for your guys' FC25 team. So between now and the 6th of October, I'm going to be uploading a daily free eafc25 trading guide. This will include everything to do on the web app to make as many coins as possible with both trading and investing. I'll be talking about the full release, what we expect to see regarding the market, and there'll also be a daily updated investing guide, all in there, updated every day for free. No gimmicks whatsoever, all you gotta do is click on the Google Docs link on the top link of the description. So in today's video, we are going to be going through your guys' FC25 teams you guys sent me from yesterday's video, and I'm going through and I'm going to be rating them, price predicting them, and kind of analysing them if I think they're well balanced, or maybe they're a bit top heavy, back heavy, or anything in between. Now if you guys want to go and send me your guys' teams, you can send them over on Twitter, or you can email me them at FLAIR.FIFA. If you guys do want to go and send me your teams, you can go and build your teams over on easysbc.io. You can either send them to me over on Twitter, link is in the description, and likewise I'll also go and put my email in the comments. I've generally been set about 50 teams for the first one, and I've managed to get through 30. I spent generally about an hour and a half price comparing them and so on and so on. So I spent a lot of time researching, and I've got you 30 teams. The idea is at the beginning of the video, I'll kind of give you guys a little lowdown on a lot of the prices, and then by the end of the video, I would have given you the lowdown on the prices, so I just reel off how much each team is going to cost. So the first team we're going to go for, I've tried to keep the, I think the most relevant teams first, and then the sort of teams that will not be too interesting for you guys last. So hopefully your questions will be answered. So the first thing is everyone has sent me a team with Gokarez in. Every team, like a lot of them, have Gokarez in. So that's going to be the first person we're going to go and talk about. And there's fair reason for it to have Gokarez in. You know, he's got 90 pace, he's got himself 91 physical, he's got 83 shooting, along with a 5-star weak foot. But I think as a result, I think his card's going to be very expensive. I've compared him to some cards in previous years. You've got Ronaldo last year. So the things that are going for Gokarez for him to be cheap is he's playing in the Liga NOS, he's Swedish. You know, Benfica don't exactly, Sporting CP don't exactly have the best players in the world. But I looked at some of the, again, off-league players last year. You got Messi, who's 170k last year. We've got even someone like Saint Maxim. Now, Saint Maxim is French, which goes for him. But Saint Maxim last year was 20k when playing in the Saudi League. Benzema was SBC fodder. So, yeah, so there's a lot of expensive out-of-league players. And I've actually gone and priced up Gokarez at 50k, which does seem insane because it's a Liga NOS card. But the card is very, very hyped. It's a very, very good card. And you can look at some of the top-end cards last year in the MLS, in the Saudi League. And, you know, these cards were still relatively expensive. Again, one of the main ones, I think, you know, if you look at someone like Saint Maxim, although again he was French, so yeah, I do think it'll be about 50k, and then I think after the 4 weeks, I think he'll I think he'll drop out 30k in the first week. So we're talking from about the 27th through to early October. He drops from 50 to 30, and then he drops 10k every week. And the reason for that is, even though yes, he looks like a really, really good starter player, he's not going to be staying in people's teams. When people are using promo cards, road to the finals and so on, unless there really are Sporting CP players in them, you're not going to keep a Swedish player like this in your team. So as a result, I think yes, he starts at a very high price at the beginning, but I do think he goes and drops. I do think that Gokarez, is 50k and drops through to 30k. Next card we're going to go through is going to be Chiesa. Chiesa's in a few of your guys' teams. Obviously, he's moved from Juve to Liverpool, which really heavily increases his price. Now, last year Chiesa was 80k, last year Chiesa was 60k, but he actually wasn't in packs for the first week, so we don't really know what he would have been last year. A few comparisons I went for was Luis Diaz, interesting enough, from last year. Luis Diaz was 40k last year. But obviously I'd say he has a significantly better card than Diaz. I also think he's a more interesting card. So I've gone and priced up Chiesa at 80k in the first week, but of course I do expect him to go and drop. We then move to Diaz. Again, Diaz has actually been 40k for the last 2 years in a row, so I think he could be 40k that year. We then move to Loftus-Cheek, won't really be worth anything. Reindeer won't be worth anything more than 5k. Pulisic, quite an interesting card. Now, the thing that really carries him is Milan links. I looked at a few cards last year to compare him to. Something like Felipe Anderson, he came in at 5k. I then compared him to like Benacer, because he's just a player really carried by those Milan links. And again, he was about 5 to 7k. So I've gone and priced up Pulisic at about 10 to 15k, probably closer to 10k. But then he should freefall quite a fair bit after that. Next interesting play we get to is Udogie. Now, Udogie was worthless last year, but that's because Udogie is 101 fast, fast Premier League fullback. But this year, I actually think you can probably come in at about 15k. He's got himself like a +3 rating. He's kind of significantly better than the other Premier League left backs and right backs, other than the other guys he's used here. I would say Spurs has quite a lot of decent starter players. You've got stuff like Maddison, you've got stuff like Vicario, you've got players such as Van der Ven. So quite a lot of decent starter players for Spurs, which is what I think can work nicely in his favour. This guy's going to be discard. St. Juice will be about 3 to 5k and then drop to discard within a week. Kaldogu, I do think is a very interesting card because he's actually kind of got he's got a card as good as Udogie. His link's significantly worse though. I haven't seen anyone link me any other Brighton players other than this guy. So even though I think Udogie will probably come in at about 10 to 15k in the first week, I think Kaldogu would just be 5 to 7k. The nice thing about this guy, he can actually play on the he can play as a left back as well. And then we move on to Pope. Pope was about 10-12k last year, so I think he comes in about 5 to 7k. So all in all, I do think that the first team with Gokres coming in at 50, Chiesa coming in at 80, and Diaz coming in at 40 being the big ones, I do think the team is going to come in at 220k. We now move to the next team. Got a few repeat players from the first team, but not too many. We're going to go for Foden. Foden's had a massive increase in demand. He's gone from like an 85 to an 88. More significantly, he's had a significant pace increase. He's now got a playstyle plus. Previously his card again was only about 10-15k because it was fodder, but I'd say his card should now be quite comparable with something like in Cuckoo. In Cuckoo was 70k from the bat and then 50k after the first weekend league, so I'd say Phil Foden will be about 50 to 60k from the release and then drop, just because in the end of the day you're kind of limited where you can go and play your 86 pace wingers. We now move on to Isaac. Isaac is comparable to Jota of last year, both of them having 5-star weak foot and 4-star skills. Isaac definitely is more hyped because he's a new sort of meta card, or more meta than he was last year. So Jota coming in at 20 last year, I do think Isaac can be about 30 to 40k. Then we dropped to about 15k in the first week. Pulisic already covered 10k. Barella, really interesting card. So we look at Barella last year and he was 30k, but this year he's got a much nicer card. In fact, he's got 80 plus all stats apart from one, whereas last year he had a lot of like 78, 79s, and that jump from 78, 79 all the way up to 80 for price-wise is actually a significant boost. So yeah, I actually think he goes from about 30k, and I've compared him actually a little bit to Frankie de Jong of last year, another card who's just spammed with 80 stats on his base gold card. Yeah, so I've got Barella down at around about 50k. Tonali, same card as last year, just arguably less hype. Obviously, I think he was new into the Prem last year, got a nice big upgrade. Slightly worse card, but I still think he's about 70k. I think he's still an expensive card. Again, we're looking at 80 stats across the board, but he's in the Prem, which is why he's, even though lower rated than Barella, should be more expensive. Benacer coming in about 5k. Gavardio got himself about 20 to 25k last year. I think he's less this year again, less hype around him. I think it's about 15k, drops to 7k in a week. Akanji was actually discard last year with a very similar card, but he's got a +2 rating and slightly increases. So I think rather than being like a 2-3k card, maybe he's a 5 to 7k card. It's quite interesting because I was like, well, Akanji, he's never really expensive, but you go and compare him to Gavardio and, these two cards really aren't too... they're very, very alike. So, yeah, I think about 5 to 7. Tomori, a lot of people have gone and linked me Tomori in the cheap teams. Well, Tomori historically has never really been a cheap player. Yeah, I think last year he was coming in at around about 80 to 100k. Well, this year I think he's only 60. He's got himself a decrease in the pace. He's got himself a decrease in the rating. Milan links are probably as good as last year. They're no improvement like we got last year, where I think Mianganon got an upgrade. I mean, Theo Hernandez got an upgrade, I guess. But yeah, I do think he's going to have a downgrade, at least in price. And I think he's 60k, drops to 40k in the first week. We then move on to Walker. Walker was 100 to 120k last year. I think Walker's 100 to 120k this year. I don't think there's any right backs that come in to replace him. I think Man City links are only getting better. So yeah, so he's about 100 to 120. Mianganon, same as last year, was 30k for the first 2 weeks. Don't see why it wouldn't be 30k for the first 2 weeks this year. So definitely a significantly better team than more expensive team than the last one. Last thing we showed you was it like 220? This team I think is 440. I think you're doubling the price. We now move on to the third team, and let's start off with Unai Simon. Just going to be a 10k SBC fodder card. Yeah, nothing more than that. Again, Spanish La Liga goalkeepers. You've just got so many top end options of like Oblak, Courtois, to Stegen that there's no reason for him to be anything more than fodder. Llorente came in about 30, actually went up to 45k on the release last year. Does have a worse card, is lower rated, so I do think he's just going to be about 30k this year. Tomorrow I've already covered his 60. Van der Ven, very interesting card. Van de Ven last year came in at 20k. I've actually compared him to Saliba's card of last year. I think Van de Ven has worse links than Saliba. Saliba's French Prem. You don't get any better links for that. We have said earlier that the Spurs links are quite nice. He does have a better card than what Saliba had last year, and arguably some would say he probably got a better card than what Saliba has this year, although obviously he has no playstyle plus. So I've actually priced in Van de Ven at 50k, which seems crazy, but Saliba last year, who was an 83 rated centre-back, was 50k, went up to 70k, then back down to 50k. So Van de Ven, 50k, down to 40k after the first week, a little bit like Saliba. You do get, again, 15, 20k. Correa last year came in about 15k, 15, 20k. I don't see there being any difference. I don't think there's much difference in Atletico Madrid links. I don't think there's any difference in his cards. So still another 15 to 20k. Pellegrini and Reindeer are practically free. We move on to Nico Williams, a player that's made a lot of people's teams. Now, Nico Williams, I think, is an interesting thing to bear in mind, is Rafinha last year came in at 50k. And Nico Williams has almost a direct sort of comparable card. But what I would say is Nico Williams this year is probably more hyped than Rafinha last year. Nico Williams this year has the Rapid Plus playstyle. Rafinha obviously not having a Rapid Plus. So Rafinha being 50k last year, I think Nico Williams is coming in about 80k. And if you're unlucky, I think he goes up to 100k if he's the meta. Obviously the meta is still to be decided, and the meta kind of depends on who holds price, who loses price. But yeah, I think Nico Williams does come in about 80 to 100k after him having again comparable card to Rafinha. I'd say Rafinha's got better club links, but Nico Williams is probably one of the most hyped up players around at the moment. But then move on to Martinez, and Martinez I actually think is a really good shout for someone who I think is going to be great value for money. So Martinez's card last year was fodder as an 87 rated, but this year he's an 89 rated. He's got himself Finesse Plus. But I'll be honest with you, I think because the Milan links aren't too amazing, I still think he's around for SBC fodder, which means at minimum he's worth 25k, which means it sounds expensive, but it's a 25k player who isn't really going to drop in the first few weeks. One of the best ways of building your squads at the beginning is to go and basically use players who are discard of their ratings. You use stuff like Benzema would have been good to use last year because he would have been like the cheapest 89 in the market, and you're using like a decent card. I think Martinez is a bit of a cheat for that as well. So yeah, I think he comes in 25. Hey, if he is hyped, I don't think he'll be anything more than 10k more than SBC fodder at 35. Then move on to Dybala. Dybala's a bit of an awkward one to go and price up. That's because he got a team in week 1 last year, so we don't really know what he started off at. Yeah, I've banged him in about 30k. I think he's got a slightly better card than last year, and it was very well demanded card last year, Dybala. So this team in whole, I do think is going to go and cost 330k, with obviously a lot of that coming from 50k of Van de Ven, 60k Tomori, 30k Llorente, and then obviously near 100k on Nico Williams. Quite well balanced though. Obviously the midfield, I mean, he's obviously got a lack of midfield, but the midfield's not really worth anything, and obviously the attack and defence are about 150 apiece. So moving on to the next team. So this is also a team where I feel like someone's tried to go budget, but I just don't think I don't think the budget players are budgeting, to put it politely. Ibanez comes in about 5k from the release. The rest of the back line's about 5k in total. Fred, you can have for free, the discard. Now, Diaby. Diaby is very interesting. So Diaby last year came in at 70k for obviously playing in Aston Villa. Well, I'd say Diaby is still going to be one of the best French right wings. He's got quick step, he's still got 95 pace, he's got 86 dribbling, obviously no shooting, but he's still going to be one of the best French right wingers. And just like how St. Maxim was still 20k last year, and even though he's playing in Saudi Arabia, it's the reason why Diaby's not going to be cheap. So I think Diaby last year 70k. Yes, he's had a -1 rating. I still think you're looking at 40k for that Diaby, just despite him being in the Saudi league. Maybe 30k if you're lucky, but he's French. It's the most popular nation in the game. So yeah, I think Diaby comes in about 40k there. Move on to Kante. Got himself a -1, but got himself +7 pace. I know which one I'd prefer to have on the card. Obviously, he's got himself the Intercept. I can never remember what that is. Playstyle. Last year, Kante was SBC fodder, though he did get himself a team the week 2, so it made his price a little bit hard to gauge. I would say Kante is probably only going to be about 15 to 20k this year. Yeah, I'd say he's a decent card, but it was fodder last year. His team of the week last year only came in at 70k, so I don't think the demand's too insane. Move on to St. Maxim. I said he was 20k last year. Funny enough, actually moving from the Saudi league to the Turkish league is literally a downgrade in leagues, because obviously last year he got himself strong links to Kante, he got himself strong links to Benzema. Did he get strong links to anyone else, Dan? I think it's strong links to Ibanez, if I'm not wrong. Whereas this year, I don't think the Fenerbahce strong links are looking very good whatsoever. So I'd actually say in terms of, and of course, like the Superliga just doesn't have as good players. Sorry, Osherman. As the Saudi League had last year. So even though it's 20k last year, I think he's coming in about 10-15k this year, St. Maxim. Then move on to Osherman. Osherman's quite a hard one to call. 80k last year as a Napoli player. Well, he's got a downgrading card and a significant downgrading league. Honestly, I think he's probably about 25 to 30k. I don't think he's that expensive next year playing in the Superliga because the Superliga just doesn't have good players. I've been seeing a lot of start teams, a lot of Saudi, a lot of Liga NOS, not getting much Superliga in there. So then move on to Gokares. Again, I think he's about 50k. I think if you're lucky, maybe he's 30, but yeah, 50k from the get-go. As a whole, the team's only 160k. I think it's quite balanced. I think the defence definitely seems to be lacking a bit, but I guess that's in there for the chemistry of Gokares or something. But yeah, that's the thing, is if you're paying like 30 to 50 for Gokares, then you're paying another 40 for Diaby, but your fullback is a 70. It's quite imbalanced. That's the problem. A lot of teams are like that, but it's understandable. You know, who wants to spend your money on defence when you can spend it on offence? Nice, interesting team here. 10k on Unai Simone. Then again, we move to another 80k on Inaki Williams. 10k on St. Maxim. Only 5k on 5k on Inaki Williams. 80k on Nico Williams. Crazy, eh? And then 25k on Osherman. Means this team, no new players really, comes in at 140k. Not bad. Now move on to the next team. Timber's just going to be cheap. Mattison's going to be cheap. Dumfries should be nice and cheap. Rabiot's an interesting card. Last year came in at 10k, but he's gone from 78 pace to 82. So I think he generally goes from about 10k to 20k because he got, I think, more pace and more physical. On top of that, Rabiot became a very legendary card last year, was using 101 Evos, so that can also drive the demand for him this year. Then move on to Thuram. Quite an interesting card. Previous years he's been a discard, but with Ben Yedder moving to the whatever made-up league he's gone to, and Ben Yedder was 10k last year. We also had Kolo Muniain's card last year was 30k. French strikers are normally quite, we're kind of lacking in them. So I do think, despite this card not being too insane, because he is a French striker, I think he comes in about 7 to 10k. Gakpo, pretty interesting. He was about 15k last year. I believe he was also new and hyped last year. He's got 82 pace. I don't think Gakpo's more than 5k this year. I think he's a very cheap card. And moving on to Malin. Malin last year was about 5k. There generally hasn't been that much more of an improvement. Definitely more hype around Malin because of some of those cards we got early January, which I think leaves Malin about 5 to 10k. Nice all-rounded team, I'd say. Would say a nice all-rounded team, apart from Tomori. If you took Tomori out, I'd say it's quite balanced. Maybe you go and replace Tomori for Breme. I don't think you get away with that if you need the Milan links or something, but yeah, other than Tomori being 60k and every other line you're a team being like 20k, I'd say it's a nice balanced team. And in total, I'd say coming in at 110k. Moving on to this team, again, we're going to start seeing a lot of familiar faces. Mavropanos, this guy, comparable to someone like, what's it called, Martinez, Villa's keeper last year. Only should be about 10-15k if that. Backline's cheap. Joe Gomez, just a 5k card nowadays. Hazard a +1, but nothing too crazy. Baldé's only a few k. Morino's just going to be one of these. It's cool he's been transferred in, but he's just another SBC fodder midfielder. Join the teams of Bruno Guimaraes, McAllister. What have we got? Bruno Fernandes is practically fodder nowadays. Bernardo Silva. There's just so many of these Premier League fodder. He's coming in about 7k. Slobsha's still about 5k. Nico Williams 80. Nunes quite interesting. There's a Evo thought. Well, there's thought to be an Evo that he might go and fit. If he fits that Evo, he's about 20-30k. If he doesn't fit that Evo, he's about 10-15k. Yamal, I mean, if he's anything more than 5k, you're destined to lose a lot of coins on him. But yeah, it should just be 5k. Yes, he is extremely hyped, but that card is abysmal. And hype can't carry this card being, well, to an extent. Hype can't carry this card being a 20-30k card if it is generally a god-awful card, unless he goes and fits an Evo. This team should be about 140k. Next one. We've got, quite a few interesting players on this one. Let's see. All right, Konate coming in at 5k. Delot should be about 5k. Udugi getting 15 to 20k. Jolington, we've got coming in at only 5k. Kudos should only be about 5k. Doku, quite an interesting card. Nice upgrade. I think he's only about 10-15k, and he crashes very fast after the standard edition of FIFA comes out. Gokes, again in 50k. Rashford, very interesting. So Rashford is thought to fit the first Evo. Now, if Rashford doesn't fit the first Evo, his card isn't too insane, and I think it's about 50. I think he's still 50 to 70k. You know, striker utility, left wing utility, 5-star skills. People just use him every year. So I think it's about 50 to 70k, even as an 81 rated, just means he crashes fast after the full release of the game. But if he fits an Evo, I think instead of him being 50 to 70, I think he's about 150 to 200. Because if he fits that first Evo, guaranteed everyone does him. And he's already going to be quite a rare card. Even though, yes, he's 81 rated, Mendy's 82 rated, and yet every year Mendy's 100k. Rashford's just going to be one of those cards that even though he's low rated, he's just going to be expensive. And if he goes and fits an Evo, I generally think he'll triple in price. Now, we don't know if this Evo will let us use certain stats or let us use, you know, whatever, but he doesn't have a playstyle. They've already said we can use a striker that's 82 rated. Again, if he fits that first Evo, he's going to be the one that everyone does, and he's going to be super, super expensive. Which I'm going to price Rashford at 50 to 70, even though, yes, he'll be super expensive otherwise. I do think this team is 270k. Moving on to another team. Is this the right team? Yeah, 170k for the Rashford team. 270k for this team. Spoiler. How does it end up being 270k? We've got Breme. Breme comes in about 20k. 80 plus pace. I mean, we looked at someone like Marquinhos last year who was 40k, but Marquinhos has significantly better links. But it's the same sort of thing. Llorente coming at 30. Ibanez 5. Simone 10. Kante coming in at 20. Dybala coming in at 30. Rabiot at 20. Nico Williams there at 80. Correa at 15. DRB at 40. Leaving this team coming in at 270. There we go. Next team, yeah, bit of a slightly unbalanced team because it's a very, very cheap team apart from Rashford and Tomori. Vicario 10k, Zielinski free, Reindeer you can have for free, Pulisic 10, 15k, Cole Palmer, the card's just abysmal. It's basically like a Phil Foden from last year. I think Palmer just comes in at 10, 15k, and Thuram comes in there at 10k. Yeah, as a result, this team should be 180, but that's with Rashford being 70 and Tomori being 60. You know, 130 of a 180k team is just in those two, and then the rest of the coins are spread out a little bit. I like this team. Apart from I think Palmer will be a little bit overvalued. I think it's quite a well-built team. I think you could probably get a better goalkeeper in there. I don't think Varane's costing you anything this year. 73 pace, playing for Como. Can't imagine there's much demand for that whatsoever. Yeah, your only real players you're looking at is Martinez, who I said earlier I think will be quite good value for money because he'll be close to being fodder. I think this whole team is coming in at 70k. I think it's a very cheap team. I do think it's a bit disbalanced, going like potential 25k striker with a golden on rare, but presumably a Chelsea fan. A few Chelsea players spread. Presumably a Hungarian Chelsea fan. We can only presume. All right, next team. What do we have right here? I think we've gone through all these players already. Yep, we have indeed. Nothing new. This team we've got down as... Yeah, so I second guess myself on this team, but I forget that, again, Van der Ven 50, Tomori coming in at 60. That's 110k right there. Looking at another 30 on the Isaac, that takes you to 140. Another 20 there, 160. Another 10, 15 there, takes you about 170. Another one there, 180. And then I've probably forgotten about another player. So yeah, 200 to 220k on this team, despite me looking at it and it looking a bit plebby. Move on to this team right here, and yeah, it's costing us around about 120k. New player here, Martinelli, I've got priced in at about 20, so 20 with the Gokras 70. Added the Van der Ven, you're already sitting there at about 120 right there. So there's that team. We now move on to this team, which I have down as 85k. Nothing really new to go and talk about in this team. Next one is 20k. Don't see anything in this team being worth anything. Inaki Williams 5k. Other than that, the rest of it is give or take SBC fodder. Next one to that is this one. You got Thuram 10k, Barella 50k. Apart from that, no one else in that team is really expensive, which is why I got it priced at 70k. The next team, the next team, yeah. We've got Werner's a new player, got him priced in about 15k, going off of how much someone like Cody Gakpo was last year. And again, not many of the strikers last year surpassed 20k, around about 170 here. I don't think there's anything too new. Obviously, he's got the Rashford in there. Next team we've got down as costing 200k. Again, Rashford, Gokras, Isaac, Tony, Trent. But yeah, you do get right there, 20k. Covered a lot of those players already. Alright, next team we've got is, I've got down as 35k. I think this is a really well-balanced team, actually. Diego Dallo will cost you 5k. St. Max will cost you about 10-15. But apart from that, we're just looking at like 2-3k players here. So yeah, really, really well-balanced team. Big fan of this one in terms of being a budget team. Next one, yeah, it's a bit all over the shop. Breme, again, 20k. Martinez, 35k. I think only cost you about 75k, but Garnacho, maybe Loftus-Cheek is okay looking non-rare, I guess. But yeah, it's only a nice all-round team there. Next team we're going to go and cover is this one. This team, I'll be honest with you, I did not know Greenwood is in FIFA. How controversial. Well, again, yeah, this team coming in at 15k? Yeah, it's coming at 15k, yeah. Nothing in this team should cost you anything more than a K or two, really. Next one. I've got this team costing 70. That mainly comes down to Llorente being 30, the goalkeeper being 10. Pedri should be around about 15 as well, going up how much it was last year. But yeah, nice little cheap 70k team. Next team, what do I have here? I've got this down as 110. Why do I have it as 110? Van der Ven 50, Udogie another 20, 70, Maddison another 10 there. Takes you to 80. Werner another 15, takes you to 95. So yeah, that's why. Next team. Basically, it's a discard team apart from Upamecano. It's about a 25k team, but 12k and that comes in Upamecano. Bowie shouldn't be expensive. Gnabry should be super cheap this year. Tal should just, you know. Yeah, do you know what? With 80 shooting, I guess it's the 87 dribbling. Presumably he's tall. He is 6 foot. Well, I mean, I don't know if it warrants the 77 dribbling too much, but yeah, it should only be about a 25k team with 12k of that coming in the form of Upamecano. This team, first team with Gabriel Jesus in it, should be 15k if he fits the first Evo, which he might. It might end up being about 25 to 30k. Other than that, team is very, very cheap. Apart from Udogie coming in at 20 and Picario coming in around about 10, but I'd say about 60k for this team. Next one, this is like an old school Rota Glory starter team. It's going to cost you about 10k. I don't see anything. I mean, Gordon maybe 2-3k, Pedro Neto 2-3k. But yeah, it shouldn't be anything expensive there. Next team we're going to move on to, I've got down as 60k. We have 15k of that coming in Correa, 30k coming in Llorente, and then just 3-4k players dotted around in that team. Next team we got is the Blue Man Group. The next team we've got down is Mendes costing 20k. Mendes was about 20k last year. Don't see, PSG links have definitely dropped off, but I definitely don't see there being a decrease in demand in him because there's still enough like mid-tier sort of players to keep Mendes being about 20k from the get-go. His team should be about 80k. Gokrez, of course, coming in 50. Mendes 20, and then the rest of the team shouldn't be very expensive whatsoever. A little bit on Hernandez, maybe. I think it was about 5 last year. This team should be about 10k. I mean, does Scotland / the Scottish League bring in anything interesting this year? A very slow Tierney. I mean, they got Hendry playing in the Saudi League. But yeah, apart from that, nothing too interesting. Next one, we got ourselves on the Jamaican team. Again, 10k. Probably looking at a few k on Bailey, but nothing too crazy there. Ethan Pinnock, legend. And then this is the 30th team. So we've gone and covered 30 teams. We got Chiesa coming at 80, Gokrez coming in at 50. Bruno Gehemes got himself a few pace downgrade, meaning he generally joins fodder, although it was only 5k last year. Anyway, McAllister, again 5k as being fodder, and the rest of the back. Oh, Martinez. Edison last year was about 30k, who was one rating higher, so it should be about 20 to 25k right there. And the final team, about 175k. Now, there are a few teams that I didn't get around to doing, and that's because to price up all these teams, it generally took me about an hour and a half, and then it's another half an hour recording, and so the video doesn't go out too late compared to when I normally upload. I haven't been able to get around. So if you do see your video here, do not worry. They will be covered either tomorrow or in a video later down the line. And if you guys do want to go and send me your teams, I should be able to get round to them. Again, you can either send them to me over on Twitter, or you can go and email me them, and that's how I'll put them down below. For some reason, you can't comment the link in the YouTube section, so that's great, YouTube. But that's been that. Thank you very much. As I drop any sort of discussion in the chat, very active in comments, probably until I'm back streaming. In terms of streams, if you guys are interested, I will be back streaming daily for 10 hours a day, every day. From the, I think around about the 16th, where I'll be streaming from 8 in the morning through to 6, half 6 every single day. So that's been that. Thank you very much for watching, and I shall see you guys tomorrow with a brand new video.